Test one, test two, testing one and two. Wrote that song for you guys. It's the new edition of testing one and two. Alan, give me a test.
Je parle français, petit.
Oh, man, that sounded cool even if it was wrong. It might have been right. I don't know. I don't speak any French. I say pommes frites, which is I think that's French fries.
But I speak a little French.
Commander, give us a test.
Yeah, no hablo español mucho.
Oh, Smavcasters, you are in for a treat tonight, as you can already hear. We have, of course, Sifu Allen from Phoenix Saber Academy, the president of Saber Martial Arts, as well as your main man here, Fode-san, yours truly. Hi, nice to see you again. I don't see you, but nice to hear you again. You hear me, you get the idea. And of course, we have a guest tonight. We have somebody that we teased in the last couple episodes that you've already heard by now. This is Commander Tony Negron from Aiken Saber Academy. Commander, how are you doing?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing good. Hello, everybody. I'm getting closer to 70. Life is good. The school is growing. I came from the Praxeum Awards, which was a great competition. I can't complain. And plus, I'm here with you two guys.
Well, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. I know Alan has been chomping at the bit to get you back on after the Praxeum War, which, as you spoiled for us so smoothly, by the way.
Well, that's what old men do.
No, smooth as butter. The Praxeum War just happened like a month ago. That was the Saber Light Knights big sort of seminar and tournament event. And you guys, if you have been listening, the previous two episodes, we had Ryan and Courtney on from Saber Light Knights. They did, excuse me, I have a little hiccup. I drank some Mountain Dew and now I got the little burpees. Ryan and Courtney from Saber Light Knights came on and they did the commentary for the standard Saber and exotic Saber divisions for the real LED Sabers. But now Commander is also ran a tournament or a division in the tournament with his Saber integrated training system or S.I.T.S system and foam weapon sparring, which I know, Tony knows, but Alan and I are big proponents of foam weapon sparring at all ages. Definitely if you have kids in your program, as Tony does. But I personally think they're hugely valuable training tools. They allow you to really do a lot of cool things and a wide variety of techniques without worrying too much about killing each other, right? So I'm excited to see Tony's take on something that Alan and I have been doing in our own systems as well. And I've seen a little bit of it when I met you in Virginia a couple years ago, but I haven't seen a full tournament, so to speak, with this rule set. So I'm really, really excited about it. Tony, why don't you give us a little overhead view of, first of all, Aiken and the S.I.T.S system, and then how it applies to what we're going to watch tonight.
Yeah, well, first of all, I got to say something about the Praxeum Wars. I watch a lot of these competitions, far and away, and this is watching competitions from around the world. The Praxeum Wars is one of the best run competitions in the world.
I couldn't agree more.
Not even in the U.S. It's
couldn't agree more.
Smoothly. The sportsmanship by all the everybody that's there is off the charts. But their continuous rule set that should be a model that's used instead of Unity and by Saber Legion.
Oh my gosh!
They have really, no kidding, developed a rule set that is totally continuous, that works very well, and has been perfected over a couple of years.
Yes.
And it's safe.
Yes.
So one of the things I hear about Unity is it's rock'em sock'em robots. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard that from a few people. This is completely different, and I really wish that other leagues would sort of pick picked that up as a standard rule set for continuous fighting. Now about Aiken, of course, we're in South Carolina. We're a city program. Our ages generally run from 14 to adult. We had currently just took in a 12-year-old because he came with his dad. He showed up. I let him practice one practice, and I didn't have the heart to tell him, well, you're too young for this. So, we have a 12-year-old now, but I told him I don't tell anybody. So that's what I'm telling the audience. Don't tell anybody. I'm not taking any more 12-year-olds. But the reality is that younger people are really kind of the future. I wrote a manual that I gave to SMAF and I gave to a few organizations on how to start a youth lightsaber program. So hopefully that helps. Okay, let's talk about SITS. SITS is a rule set that we developed at Aiken to teach our students the basics of fencing. It comes from light fencing, which you two now are certified, I guess, to teach. And then it comes from Saber Sport League in France and the Silver Sabers. So it's actually two rule sets merged into one. And the first rule set, which is what we use for foam, just like in light fencing, you have to chamber whatever weapon you're using, and there's a right-of-way or priority system. So the first person to chamber and move has the ability to conduct an offensive sequence. And by an offensive sequence, I mean basically one strike. If the defender successfully defends against that, either by blocking or evading, then the sequence changes. Okay. So unlike light fencing, we don't have salvos. Our scoring is also simplistic in comparison. And it's not near continuous, but it's really fast. So we have one referee and one line judge. That's it. Yeah. For this fight, we used my phone, which has an app on it to keep track of the points and the time. So we didn't need a timekeeper. We didn't need a scorekeeper for it.
Very cool.
So for this phone fight, we had about 11 different sets of weapons. Okay. And what they'll see tonight is the variety. And the way the weapons were selected for the fight is we had 11 dominoes numbered 1 through 11. And so a person sitting on the side keeping track of the contestants would pick a domino out of a hat, and whatever got picked up, that was the weapon set you had to fight with. Okay. Sometimes it was a knife and buckler, sometimes it was a spear, sometimes it was what we call a warhammer, or a sword and shield, or a double-sided axe, or some of the heavier axes that we use. So that's how we picked it. So
this, really quickly, this is one of the things that I guess it's been like 2.5 years, 3 years now that we've been associated with you guys in some way. And one of the things I love most about SITS, and I'm sure Alan can chime in if he feels similar, is that it really harnesses what we've always talked about with this concept of saber martial arts, of mixing the weapon styles to create this one saber like weapon system, right? And you have done it independently of us, but very similarly to us, very congruent with what we've done. So for me, it's kind of been very cool to see. I always love and it's common in martial arts throughout history, but I always love seeing these concepts that are uniquely presented, but also like commonly thought of among people, but like in totally different areas of the world or country or whatever, and popping up independently of each other, but being able to work with each other. And here it is right in front of you. We're going to watch it tonight. And this is Saber Martial Arts. I mean, you're taking you said domino, like 11 different weapon systems you have here in this.
That's right. Next year
that's awesome.
We're gonna throw in some foam nunchucks, and I hope to have a flail next year to add to the 11 weapon sets you'll see in this.
So let me just, from experience with the foam nunchucks, you got to do it. It's so much fun. Especially your teenagers are gonna love that. They're just gonna love it. But yes. I think it's so awesome. Alan, you were there, you fought in this, and you've been doing foam weapon sparring as well as like the full, weapons systems and all these things for many, many years. What this was your first time, I think, competing in this specific rule set. What was it like for you?
Well, because it was the end of we did this after the first tournament.
Oh, such a good idea! Such a good idea.
Yes. So basically,
timing is everything.
My takeaway from it is we needed more of it, and we needed to do it for a little bit longer because it was a lot of fun, and it made you think differently and move differently than you would in the normal tournament. So that in itself is a plus, right? So a lot of it too is the unpredictability of it all, because you didn't know what you were fighting with until you rolled up on who you're fighting.
Right.
It's a whole thing that's a lot of fun. So
now, sorry, Alan, really quickly.
Big two thumbs up for me.
As an experienced martial artist now, you probably saw 11 different weapon systems and thought, okay, this is like the best day of my life. Right? Like, who's gonna hold my beer real quick? Right? Like, but for somebody who maybe only has experience with lightsaber fighting or maybe none at all, that could be intimidating. So maybe this is a question for Commander or maybe for Alan as a spectator, like what you saw. Yeah. What is it like for those newer people coming into a system where, like, you might not have really any experience at all, but here you are with this smorgasbord of weaponry?
Well, remember that we teach this to teenagers.
Right.
And they have no experience. They're not martial artists.
Right.
So this teaches them distance and timing and technique and speed. Well, technique's not going to be great because whoever fights with shields and spears, right? But this group that was at the competition, they were experienced. What they weren't experienced in was the fact that you have to chamber.
Right.
That there was except for Tripp. And Tripp was a Olympic saber fencer. So, he understood priority probably better than anybody else in the competition. Yeah. And it shows in that he ended up winning the competition.
Alan and I had trouble with that when we did the light fencing workshop to some degree as well.
Yeah. I noticed. I watched your fights.
Yeah, we had some trouble with that.
And we're different than they are.
Yeah, so exactly.
Quite the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So you guys would have no problem with it. The athleticism that, right off the bat, the first swing with a double axe, I think that was one of our first weapons. I looked at Courtney's face, and his eyes just like lit up. He loved it. And I looked around at everybody else's faces. So, everybody picked it up really fast. There were some rookie mistakes, like running armed across the floor. You can't do that.
Right.
There's a spacing kind of thing where you have to be within, we call it the arm zone. The arm zone is where you can reach out a weapon and touch your opponent. So if you're tall, your arm zone is bigger than mine. But that's where you have to attack from. You can't come running with the weapon armed from one side of the ring to the other. And so we had to explain that a couple times to people that you can't
almost like a reach stat in boxing.
Yeah. You have to start your attack within a certain
that reach. Yeah.
Otherwise, your opponent can do a counter because he's arming first before you get to him, and he's swinging as you get there. So there's a timing issue.
Yeah.
So the fighting is really great, and everybody picked it up. Did they hit a little harder than that? If I'm doing it next year. With certain weapons that they need to have. Some of the axes we bought from Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because if you get hit in the head with that axe, it's not being hit with a lightsaber. It's literally going to concuss your head.
Right.
So, I will say, I called force on maybe one, maybe two. And they maybe because I'm just an old, grumpy old guy, but they took the warning very seriously. And they corrected, which happens in Praxeum anyway. It happens in lightsaber. I've seen Courtney and I've seen Ryan correct people.
Yes.
And then there's an apology given, and that's the last time you see it.
Yep.
So
something else to be aware of is that we started with the best intentions of having 2-minute fights, but toward the end of it, we were running out of time. So we started going to 1 minute fights.
Oh, okay.
So the fights got a little bit more hectic as the tournament went on.
Right. And that's not how it's meant to be. Actually, we started with 3-minute fights.
Oh, that's what it was.
So we can wear you guys out. And the first few that got to do it, they were worn out. But then we ended up having to go to 1 minute, which was not the way this was designed. And I wish we hadn't had to do that. But I understood we had somebody on tap to give a lecture, and you couldn't refuse that individual from giving us a lecture.
Right.
But next year it'll be 2-minute fights with 4-minute championship rounds. And I've been told that we will be allowed to run the competition fully as it should be. One of the other things I've talked to them about was doing a small exhibition with lightsaber using the S.I.T.S. So it's a full 3 minutes with both rule sets and only 10 fighters. So basically 5 fights. And just as an exhibition to see how that looks to you guys.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, so we, with all that said, I think we could move on to the fight.
Let's get to it. So if you guys want to check out Aiken, go to aikensaberacademy.com. You could, right? You guys have a .com, or are you just on Facebook?
No, just Facebook.
Just Facebook. But you could go to sabermartialarts.life and go to our schools list. Aiken is on there, and that will also take you to the contact information for Commander if you are in South Carolina and you want to get involved, or you got a teenager who's driving you nuts and you need an activity for them. You can check that out. So go to YouTube now and go to the Aiken Saber Academy page, or just click the nifty link I left you in the show description. And you are going to go to the video called Foam Weapon Competition at the Praxeum Wars. It is just over 32 minutes in length, and we are going to start at 49 seconds on the dial. We're going to do a 3, 2, 1, go, gentlemen. So Tony has explained the rules pretty well, and we're going to get right into this first fight. It's going to start in a few seconds here. So 49 on the dial. 3, 2, 1, play. And you have a still image for just a second. That's not your computer freaking out.
So right here, it looks like that's
Alan on the right there with the red band. It looks like.
And
is that Alan?
That's
Alan.
Me and Alan. So so once again, this is a fight for Alan Prime.
That's right.
We're going back and forth with Sword and Shield. We're still getting used to stepping back and not having to reset, because in S.I.T.S there's no reset. You just take a step back and go.
Yeah.
There's no. We're not waiting for Commander to say fight for a second.
So I'll call break, and as soon as I say break, and issue either my ruling. As soon as the ruling is done, whether it's points or no ruling, then you go immediately. And that's just to make the fight more interesting and faster.
All right.
I love Sword and Shield. It's one of my favorite styles to fight in.
You see these guys are going pretty well at each other. There's a lot of blocks in there that we're not necessarily seeing with the camera. And they have our mid-size shields.
I was noticing a lot of defensive responsibility, as you might say.
Right. So Alan's getting ready. He's setting them up. There like when Alan got blocked. Alan blocked it and came back and hit him in the leg. You guys are going too far back. You don't need to go that far back. You just need to take 2 steps away from each other.
Right.
But this was at the very beginning of the competition.
Right. And who was your side judge for this, Commander?
I think for this one, it might have been Tully.
Okay.
Either Tully or Chris.
All right.
So the legs count. All target zones are legal, or what would be your illegal target zones aside from groin?
Because we weren't using gloves, no hand hits, no foot hits, no back of the head, private parts, that kind of
Pretty
thing.
standard.
Right. So the head and torso are 2 points, and the arms and legs are 1 point.
Okay. That's fun. That's very fun.
Just keep it simple. That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
I noticed there's 5 points, and then there's salvos, and That's just too difficult. So here we have kind of similar, and we got the little bit smaller shields.
Yep.
That's because they decided to use that. So that looks like Trip. See how Trip just was walking with the arm just there? So, and then he's like counterattacking when the other guy has the right of way.
So did they have to use the same size shield as the other?
Yeah, it wouldn't be fair.
Okay.
Now, there was one fight where it was Alan against one of the young ladies, and it was just such an overmatch that Alan used a buckler, and if I'd had a bigger shield, I would have given her a much bigger shield.
Now, is that still Alan in the red?
Yeah, he put on his gambeson.
Okay.
Because this is, I believe, toward the middle of the tournament.
Because he's using that shield more like a buckler, even though it's a little bigger than a normal buckler might be.
Right. That's right.
You can tell. I could notice his helmet was the same.
Right.
Yeah, so he got hit in the chest with the double bladed axe in the other room. Yeah. He was like, maybe I should put on my gambeson just in case.
Those gambesons really are quite impressively protective.
They are. But the one foam axe generates a lot of force. Yeah. We had a double-sided axe. You'll see it come up. It's really light. It's not going to hurt you if you get hit. Those buffers, they're not going to hurt you if you get hit with it. We wore the heck out of Trip for this competition. I mean, he had to lay on the floor. His back was hurting so bad.
So now we have mace and shield.
And buckler.
Okay, and buckler here. Alan, Venable, and who is that you're fighting, Alan?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I didn't know a lot of the people there. I think he's from Khyber.
Oh yeah. His name comes up in the previous episode. I'm sorry too, sir. I'm not familiar with you.
So it's a funny thing. I can tell you who is wearing what set of armor.
Yes, exactly.
But once that armor comes off, I'm like, who is that?
Yeah.
So the smaller the weapon, the smaller the shield. So the knife and small mace use bucklers. We go up a little bit and to the axe, and then you use a bigger shield with the axe. We have a small hand axe and then a double hand axe.
That was me doing my Naruto run there.
Yeah. You look like so that was obviously a 1 minute fight. Unfortunately,
I would have liked that round. That would have been right up my alley.
Oh, that's David. Okay, that's David.
Okay.
From,
David
from Saber.
Now
Saber.
We've got Warhammer here, which looks like an extended club instead of like a full ass Warhammer.
Right.
Yeah. I think this is Mike
like
Mendoza.
And Lyndon is on the left.
And Lyndon, yes.
Now, can you strike legally with the small tip on these?
No.
Okay.
We started like that to do that. I think it takes away from
the technique of
the technique of it. Yeah,
I understand.
It's better like this because we want them to learn how to block.
Well, and you don't allow thrusting in this rule set, correct?
No. But it's fun to thrust with these.
I was going to say that butt cap would be a lot better for thrusting, but I understand without that in the rule set that it would be kind of useless.
So if you, like I said at the competition, if you thrust, it's the best thing when you hit somebody in the face as they're coming in, just like you just did right there. And you can use the thrust as
an entry tool.
Yeah, exactly, to set yourself up.
Yeah.
So we have a bigger version of that Warhammer, so that's the small Warhammer.
They look like they're hitting with a hell of a lot of force, but these boys don't look like it's hurting too much.
No, those are pretty safe.
Yeah.
Well, most of the hits too are to the fencing mask, which is pretty good. If you get hit, in the chest and stuff like that, like I actually got hit, just like that in the torso. You feel it, but it doesn't hurt because of the amount of foam that's on the end of that thing.
Those fencing masks,
you notice Lyndon coming up and using a technique that you didn't have to go. You don't have to swing for the fences all the time. Right.
Well, and if you think about like a real historical Warhammer, like they're relying on that weapon's natural weight to do most of the damage, right? And then technique makes up the rest of the the slack. So, or physical prowess, as it were.
And if you notice, Lyndon's doing a good job of arming the tip. You have to get the tip behind your center point, and that's all that's needed.
It was fun to watch those big boys sling it out with those hammers. And now we've got another Warhammer match here.
Right. So that looks like the bigger Warhammer. So that's Tully,
and that's Ryan
like
on the left.
2 to 3. The video is 2 or 3, all of the same weapon.
It's definitely Ryan McKenna on the left.
Tully is 19.
Okay.
And he's going to go a lot slower. I made him an instructor this year. Tully started with us like a lot of kids start, very quiet. His mom didn't leave the studio. I was on for weeks, and now he's an instructor. He's been with us for 5 or 6 years.
That's super cool. I love to hear that.
Yeah, he was great.
He's got some technique too. He's got some stance. You know what I mean? He's got some arm position.
You don't need to go hard. You just need to know the technique and the rules. You don't need to go that fast. That looked like a foot hit, so it didn't count.
All right.
Ryan's a gamer too, so
he gave it to him. So I got overruled by my line judge, who had a better view of it.
Right, and that was Chris, right?
That at this point, that was Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the only other thing here is, have you played with mixed weapons where they're not fighting with the same weapon? They're fighting with
we've done that. Yeah, well, we have something called Foam Wars. If we have time, we could do an X Games where you have that ring. You'd put 4 fighters, and all four fighters would have different weapon sets. That's an absolute.
Yeah,
blast.
Alan and I have been drooling over weapon randomization for years now. So yes, this isn't. Anytime that situation comes up, we're game.
Jumping attack from Ryan.
That was something in my especially with the teenagers that I really loved doing with the foam weapons, was just letting them choose what they wanted to fight with, because also when it came to saber fighting, it would help inform what style I thought they might best be suited to later on. So it was a good way to sort of help my training regimen.
What kind of foam weapons are you guys using?
Generally the Action Flex stuff from Century, but just because that's what's most accessible to me in my personal professional life. But what you guys use? What are you guys using? Is those from you said Sweden?
They're all from Soft Warrior in Ukraine.
Oh, Ukraine. Okay. Yeah. Soft Warrior. So that's right. Soft Warrior Sparta. Is that what it's called?
Right. Mm-hmm. If you look at Tully's leggings, that's a Soft Warrior product. So they're the ones that made our lightsaber armor force.
Yes, I believe I shared you. They have a picture of you looking super dope and fly on their Instagram, and I believe I shared it on our Instagram. So you guys should check them out on their Instagram, because it's not only does Commander look super fly in his red armor, but it looks like really functional.
It's really lightweight as far as it doesn't hold in heat. Unlike a Gabberson, it's as protective as wearing leather. It's foam over plastic in the middle, and the plastic could be. So I have an original prototype that we did. So that's a black set and a red set. Okay. The red set is what we use here. And if you saw Chris here, Chris was wearing a white set. That's Chris on the left with the double-sided axe.
Oh my gosh, those things look wild.
This is a fantastic fight. Chris is very mobile.
He's fighting Akaya Roby from West Virginia, from Caber Kai.
So smart axe fighters don't block with an axe, and I'm noticing that these boys are relying on mobility a little more. Smart idea.
With our axe, the rules are if you grab the other person's axe and take it out of their hands, you've done a disarm. So we do allow a disarm.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
The axe is perfect for that.
Yeah. This is
as good
fun
a fight
for
as
me.
This shows SITS better than pretty much anything. You notice how he just pushed off with the axe?
Yep.
To set himself up?
Yep.
So if you can connect with the head and then come around and arm all in one movement, which Chris can do.
So that's where you can see him thrusting there, even though he can't score with it. Like you said, it's a good technique just for just for opening up opportunities to score.
Right. So imagine the other.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Sorry, that was just too much fun. You got the slow-mo replay. I love it. Oh boy.
So you can take someone's momentum away as they're coming in with the right away, and then you push them in the chest with these or whatever. There's where he got caught. And then you can stop their momentum and basically take away their right away because they now stop mid attack.
You could tell that the audience is liking this fight too. This is fun, and you don't have to often have a lot of technique in these situations, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. But especially with like a big weapon like this. Like your lack of technique will reveal itself, and you'll start to adjust right away because you'll be uncomfortable, or you'll get scored on too. What I'm trying to say is, pain is a powerful teacher, and that was a classic example right there. These two are just had a blast. Just then.
Chris is another of our instructors. He's also our choreography instructor. So, yeah, I mean that was a good fight between these two gentlemen.
Yeah, Yep. Oh, knife and buckler. So this is right up my alley.
Right. So that's Chico, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
So this is, I believe, that's
got to be Chico on the right.
Blue?
Is it? It looks super Chico-y.
Right. So no thrust. It has to be a slashed.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right?
I'd be disqualified in the first 10 seconds.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a tougher fight.
Yes, it is.
Because it's so close quarter combat.
Yep. I would say knives are one of the weapons that I probably have the most experience with, and slashing exclusively is much more difficult.
It is, and then you throw the buckler in there, which makes it kind of a cool. But we just got the knives within the month before this.
Yep. Okay.
And so it was new to us too.
Yep.
But we tried it enough to know that it was fun.
Using the buckler to protect the hand on the way in is what I was taught. But you see that in whether it's Chico or not, whoever's wearing the blue, you definitely see a little more of using the buckler to protect the hand.
This, what the rule set allows you to use the buckler to sweep his hand out. So in one motion, you can back sweep.
Yep.
Their blade out of the way on your way in yourself.
But you can't score with the buckler in this rule set.
But you cannot score with the buckler. Okay. That's correct.
Okay. Now, can you push or lightly punch with it?
No. And again, because the rules don't allow for.
That's all good.
That.
Just clarifying.
The rules were developed for my school, so. Even though we're using it here, it's meant to keep everybody safe.
Yep.
Because you imagine Michael Sprague,
punching somebody with a buckler.
Right. Somebody one of the
Chico.
Oh my God.
And Peter. So that's Peter and Chico.
Okay. Yeah. The footwork looked Chico-y.
Yeah.
And I mean that with compliments in my voice, Chico.
Yeah. Peter was an outstanding fighter.
And we got another knife and buckler.
Wow.
Oh, look at that athletic nonsense.
Watch the guy on the right. He's amazing.
This is Anthony Wazell and Noah, both from West Virginia.
You got a disarm on the buckler there, and you made him continue.
Fight. Right. He's got to fight till a point is scored.
Is he allowed to pick it up? Yes. Okay.
After a point scored, yes.
Okay. Oh, so he has to leave it on the ground even if he's near it until that point is scored.
Right. Either way.
That makes it a game now. See, I like when the rules don't detract from the actual martial art, but they just turn it into more of a game. Right. That's what rules should be for. You know what I mean? Not from taking away from the actual fight.
You guys are both martial artists. I'm a sports guy. So sports boxing, sports saber. The rest. So every time I develop rules, and I did this in ROTC as well, they're meant to just be fun and action-packed.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. That's how a lot of the military training is done, right? Game-based.
Right. That's right. That's right.
And there was, I think Kay and Alan and I might have talked about it briefly, but Jesse Enkamp did a video about how a lot of, we got a new fight here going on. Looks like Alan's in a knife and buckler fight with somebody here. Anyway.
I believe that's Trevor.
Okay. So he did a video about how a lot of fighters are stopping doing hard sparring and treating sparring a lot more like playtime, and how like the Cuban boxing team would be a correct or a classic example of how like they treat it like dancing and playing. They don't treat it like hard rounds in the gym. And so it seems to me like that's kind of what this is. You're training the hard fighting by training soft play. And all of the techniques are still the same. You just take all the ass out of the tank.
Right, because it's not too difficult to go from gaining movement by this kind of gamesmanship.
That's right.
And then learning to throw then a kick from an awkward position
right.
and stuff like that. You know, it's not that far off.
Or to reintegrate certain techniques that might not be legal in the game version, right? Like it's not that hard to just start learning how to stab or learn how to punch or blah, blah, blah. Alan, you just had to be on a movie poster there, didn't you? The Perfect Weapon 2.
Good old Jeff speaking.
Yo, if they're ever filming The Perfect Weapon 2, hit me up.
Okay,
I'll be the guy he beats up.
Spear and shield. So these are just foam bow staffs, and this is a thrusting weapon. The proper way to arm in this is bringing your elbow behind you.
Okay. So you do allow thrusting, and you have a specific way to arm. You've thought of everything.
Yeah. It took me a long time to get to this. And when we first started with spears, you could use them sort of the slash. And I said, I don't know why we're doing that. We've got Najanadas for that. So those spears can also be Najanadas.
Yes.
And so they got a shield. So now it comes down to everything you know about fighting. You know, timing and distance, and it just makes for a cool way of fighting.
You see how Anthony is in an ice pick grip here.
Yeah, I'm a little.
Get over one on Vince.
He's really shortening his range by doing that, though.
Right. The thing is, it's really that's not good technique.
No.
It throws you off. You can. Who's the fellow with the purple one?
Vince.
That's Vince.
The way he had that scorpion tail over top of his head, that was more correct for sure.
Right. And you're losing length when you do that. So Vince could then go down where you see how he's holding towards the back end of the spear, and he could hit the guy in the legs.
And you really don't need to add a lot of force. Like the ice pick grip, technically, I guess on a stab would add a little more force, but you don't really need to add force on a stab with a spear. Like that thing is hitting pretty hard, no matter what.
Yeah. The only thing you got to be careful about is not getting underneath the fencing mask.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. But we still have a soft bow staff made out of foam, as opposed
and it's
to
a soft tip on that. I'm guessing like the last few inches are probably pliable.
I covered the plastic tip with duct tape.
Smart.
And then the new spears, when they're developed, will be that 5 foot, just like those. And it'll be a little bit like a more rounded tip.
Okay.
That's colored, so you'll be able to see the strikes, and it'll also be collapsible, so you can unscrew it from each other.
My favorite. This is my home right here. This is my home.
So they notice they got the regular size shields, and this is one of those that if you hit too hard, you can concuss somebody. Al and I fought this a couple of years ago.
So we've got single-handed axe and shield here, and it looks like medium shields.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I've got bigger, more like shields that knights use.
Right.
And then I've got a big Viking shield at home.
Right.
Which is what Ryan wanted to bring his. But,
of course he did.
Yeah. This is not LARPing. You know, if you know anything about AmpGuard or Daggy here, the way that they fight foam is completely different. And I think this system allows somebody to win who's not so physically dominating.
Right.
So in AmpGuard, if you're tall and you're fast, it becomes more like a Viking competition, but with foam. If you get hit in the leg, you got to go down the other leg, that kind of thing. This is definitely way different than the type of fighting that they do.
This is a lot like just training sparring, but with some regulation. You know what I mean?
It's a
that's
fun.
what I like
it's just
about
a
it.
Fun, right? It's just a fun event that teaches basics of combat.
And in my opinion, part of the reason I started doing just incorporating all the different weapons. Well, first of all, in the old dojo, like the kids were already learning a bunch of different weapons from the traditional martial arts, but beyond that, even if they hadn't been, like, they weren't doing axes before I started introducing them to tomahawks and axes. So it's the kind of thing where you just start putting it in someone's hand and letting them learn by doing. Almost like, you learn to ride your bike with training wheels, but then you can ride any bike you want after that. So I kind of like just letting people discover what they like and giving them a taste of everything, and that really is the way to do it, the way you're doing it here.
It's definitely a good way. Now, this is probably the weapon I worry about the most, because this generates a lot of force.
Even more so than those two-headed or two-sided axes?
The two-sided one, the actual axe blades are very, very soft, and they come from...
These look like they have some weight in them.
Yeah, these have a lot of weight. They come from a different company.
That is a nice combo that you've replayed here. A nice exchange. These guys are pretty good with these axes.
Most of the fighters picked up the weapons.
For our listeners, these are a long, two-handed, but smaller headed axe. So the two-sided axe was a very large head, if you're not actually watching the video. And these are a much smaller head, but they look like a heavy head. And the length of the axe seems a little longer than the two-headed was.
Yeah, this is Peter and Michael Mendoza.
Okay.
And
again, they're doing their best to not kill each other with these, except for maybe that move right there.
That was a lot. That was like time was called. Sort of deal.
You might as well jump.
Peter seemed to come into this. He asked me pointed questions about this, and he seemed to come into this with some experience at this.
So now, Alan, are you directing one match here?
Yeah,
he is.
Because we had to open up 2 rooms in order to get all the fights in.
So we've got Vince versus Trip in one-handed axe versus medium shield again. So and I like Vince's use of the high guard here.
Right. So he's not armed. He can't, like right then he was walking armed, and but where he is right now, he's not armed. That's perfectly legal. Or I would make it legal.
But you can see him sort of attempting to arm in between here and there by putting the axe head behind his ear, right? Yeah. So nice strike.
Right there.
Yep.
So he's burning a heck of a lot less energy than Trip is.
Correct. Which he needs to do because he's smaller than Trip by a significant margin.
Right, but you can go for the legs.
Correct.
Bring the shield up.
Correct.
And go for the legs. If you have the right of way, you have the right of way.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah, so as these guys are fighting, I believe what happened is that because we were going through all the fights so fast, there was like, if you were done fighting and you won a fight, you had to report to the next ring, like almost immediately for your next fight.
Okay, yep. Oh, we have two-handed swords now?
Yep.
Two-handed sword versus two-handed sword. I'm actually pretty excited about this.
I think this is Brooks against Trevor. Yeah.
So
that's Brooks.
I know you asked us which foam weapons we use. We said Action Flex I said from Sentry. I know Alan uses those a lot too. Alan, I'm familiar with a couple other brands. I know Spez Gear makes a few foam weapons, and I know that Kalimasil makes some really expensive but really sexy foam weapons.
Yeah, they do. They do. They're more realistic looking.
Yeah, definitely more of a LARP situation. But if that's something you want, like you want to cosplay your armor a little, but it still make it functional, that might be one place to look into. But also, like if you're just into that, I know they're a little expensive and you got to pay for shipping from Europe, but it might be worth it to you. Do you guys know of any other places that, aside from Soft Warrior and Sentry, that do make good?
Forged Foam.
I haven't heard of them.
Yeah, Forged Foam makes these kind of weapons.
Okay.
For combat. So they're between them and Soft Warrior, they're the only ones that make this style. Everybody else makes
Banal
more
brand,
realistic
I think,
cosplay LARP. What's that?
Bunal brand, I think, makes Filipino foam weapons, like for Filipino knife and stick fighting in competition.
Right. Like rubber knives you can get anywhere.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. Alan, do you know of any other ones too? Are we missing any off that? That's a pretty good list, actually.
Yeah. There's a lot of LARPers.
Yes.
Like I said, there's a lot of those, but there are none like these and Forged Foam. And I've looked everywhere.
And a lot of hardcore LARPers probably like to make their own weapons at a certain point too.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this is Chris against Trip. This is a good fight. Chris is very mobile.
Ooh.
If you notice, he blocked and then hit him in the head. So, and Alan is doing, or Elaine, I'm not sure how you say it, is doing the judging.
Yep.
Yeah. Chris
Oh.
Nice. But yeah, so Trip did a really good job here of just adapting as he fought different things, different principles, but he's basically just applying, distance measure, counterattacks. He accidentally hit a little bit low there. So
a lot of energy in this match. Oh, sudden death point. First one.
Yeah, so there were a few. There weren't many, but there were a few.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, I don't know that was completely armed.
I was just going to ask you, was that totally armed? But it was a good. It was a good counter strike.
No, Tripp brought it back. He needed to bring it back further.
Yep.
So.
Okay, now we have Alon versus.
It looks like Trevor again.
Okay.
This was also a double elimination tournament, by the way.
So this is still two-handed sword, but it looks like Trevor's using it more like an arm, more like a hand and a half sword, where he's got it in a one-handed grip, but it's a pretty long blade.
It's a little heavy for that.
Yeah. Now he's gone back to two-handed.
Right.
I'm sure it's hard to defend fast in a single grip.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So you would, if you were going to make a strike, you can basically throw the sword at the individual one-handed, because it's hard to control that big old sword. But it's not meant for that, though.
You had mentioned at the beginning that there was just like some nuances from people who are used to normal saber fighting to go to this and to have to adjust a little. You can definitely tell like just the overall I don't know if intensity is the word, but like, in Spinal Tap, turn it up to 11. Like that, like sometimes I feel like with the distance management and the amount of energy that some people are expending, like you don't need to turn all your amps up to 11 for this particular rule set. It's actually better to marinate around 6 or 7, it seems.
No, that's a very good point.
So it feels like
too tight, too strong. You're going to burn out quick.
Exactly. And you can kind of tell like certain fighters are actually like trying to marinate in that middle ground, and some of them are really just turning it right up to 11. So that's the end of that video. That was a lot of fun to watch.
I appreciate that.
What kind of closing? We're going to watch the women's competition, but before we start that, what kind of follow-ups do you have for that one, Commander?
What was impressive was how everybody picked this up good naturedly. Sometimes lightsaber people look at other rule sets, and I look at them with disdain.
Yep.
So I heard some remarks, that some of them are not prepared to go, say, to light fencing. So some are and some are not. So it's hard to get people off the rule set that they're used to.
Yeah.
And I think, and saber legion is good that it's introducing unity, but it's going to be hard to get fighters to go off of what they already know.
Yeah.
So the fact that at the Praxeum Wars that everybody was willing to give this a try and try hard and compete hard, that was a good sign in my view for light fencing. If they can accept foam weapons, then maybe they can make the next step, because the light fencing team that goes to Paris next year, they're not just going to come from TPLA. They should come from a bunch of different sources.
And actually, we should mention that we did actually talk to Chad about that just the other day. And when we were in Michigan, Alan donated, or I should say Saber Martial Arts donated 4 of the Action Flex foam sabers to TPLA so that they could hopefully, I don't know if they've actually done it, but could hopefully integrate it into their light fencing training a little bit, because regardless of the rule set, a lot of times gear is the limiting factor when people are getting invested in this activity. It's expensive. It's no secret that it's expensive. And it's expensive for good reason. It's durable. It's going to protect you, especially, if you're putting, you don't even need to put a lot of money, but if you're getting the right gear, which we've talked about ad nauseum on this show and other people have as well. But like that's the limiting factor. And the foam weapons just almost completely take that out. It's good to have, a helmet, maybe some gloves, but other than that, you don't really need much to spar with the foam gear.
You don't. In my school, we still, when a new student comes in, their first day there, they're going to do, unless we're doing choreography, they're going to fight with a lightsaber.
Right.
My guys everybody that's been there, they've been there for a while.
Right.
They've all got control, so nobody gets hurt.
Right.
But we use the same 2mm lightsaber blades that we use in light fencing. And then S.I.T.S is kind of like light fencing. So I'm trying to talk Chris into getting certified in lightsaber and light fencing and bringing that back to our school as well.
Well, it's definitely something I would say, and Alan would probably agree. He can chime in if he wants, but I would say it's worth it. Just because, if no other reason, diversification hopefully will lead to improvement and diversification as far as like the people coming in. And I don't just mean that in like the catchy popular way to talk about diversity. I'm talking about like diversifying your experience, your rule sets, and then, the more people that get involved, the cooler and the better we're going to be, not just as, light fencing or whatever the case is, but like, I mean, just as martial artists, we're like actually showing that this stuff is real. This is not like just stuff that nerds do because they saw it in a movie. This is like people actually want to get involved in this and do something real with it. So,
also the thing about doing any sort of combat sport is the gear, right? Like in boxing, you got to get gloves, you got to get some headgear, you got to learn how to, do it.
Yep.
And for sabers, part of the selling point is the gear. Getting, a lightsaber in itself and just swinging it around makes you a 5-year-old again, right?
Sure, definitely the saber. Yep.
Oh, it's a fantastic weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you are trying to, grow a sport or grow a culture that has inherent safety concerns, as in I'm going to hit the other person,
Right.
then you kind of want to take away some of those safety concerns, and foam is one of the best ways to do that.
That's exactly what I was trying. You said it so much more eloquently than I did that.
Yeah, foam is outstanding, and you can get good size or good priced foam weapons from Soft Warrior, and they'll extend the handles and the grips and do whatever you want
Yeah.
with them. So we do use them. The sport, I will say, this is the communication between the various organizations is outstanding right now, and then SMAF is when that seems to have launched itself into allying itself with light fencing, which I think is a great move. But everybody's talking to everybody. I mean,
Right.
it's I've never seen it like this. And back in 2018,
Correct.
nobody was talking to anybody
My
else.
gosh, I agree with you. I haven't actually thought about it, but now that you're saying it, I'm like, man, he's freaking right. Like, this is the most agreeable temperature in the saber community since maybe 2015 or 2016.
Well, we said that before, right? Because like we were all on like little islands on our own
And 2020 made it
before.
worse.
Yeah, and then because of the pandemic,
Yeah,
and the pandemic put a mirror in front of us and said, "Who do you actually want to be? How are you going to grow this?"
that's exactly what
And
happened.
basically, I feel like most of the saber organizations out there went, "Hey, who else is out there? Who else can I learn from and train with and do it? And
Yeah,
can I actually, you know, take pieces of this and pieces of that and start to play with it?" Because, like you and I constantly talk about, Mark, it gets boring to just see who hits first,
yeah,
right?
it does. And to
So,
stay in
okay,
your own
let's
cave and hang out with your own
right. Yeah,
acolytes.
there's nothing wrong with that, but if it's the only thing you do, eventually it does get boring. Now, that's also the same thing you hear from other martial artists, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But there's such a breadth of information out there and being able to play and do it. But I think what's happened over the past year is that people have also started to not just have their um, own organizations, but they're willing to open up a little bit more
Yeah.
now and let other people in because they knew that that's the only way to grow and the only way to do it.
I was
And,
just, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the coolest things is that we're closer than ever to actually having like an actual organization that people are willing to do
Yeah.
stuff under. And that's kind of like that's one of the reasons I want to bring Saber Mania to the
Yeah.
forefront is so that everybody can literally be in the same room and
Right.
share with each other in the same room
That's been
and
the
do
dream since forever, right? At least
yeah
for,
well
for us here in SMAP.
and the
That's what
first
we've always
step
strived
was
for.
yeah, the first step was what Courtney did, which was
Yeah.
basically Courtney and Ryan just reached out to everybody and said, "Hey, everybody can come in and play. Don't be a knucklehead. Blah blah blah. Let's go in and let's all do this together." And lo and behold, they did.
Well, Field of Dreams,
And
right? Because
yes,
we've been talking to Courtney about this for a long time. He's always been one of the people that we were like, okay, if we do something like this, you have to be involved. And it turns out that he was the first one to be like, well, I have a baseball field. Let's play, right?
exactly.
Like, if you build it, they will come. And so after 2020, he was one of the only ones that still had a baseball field built.
Right, exactly.
And man, how cool of him and Ryan, as you say, to open that up to people and to reach out and make the dream a reality. And I say the dream because it's not just my dream. It's not just Courtney. It's something that everybody's been low key drooling about for a long time. And
Right. And you know what? The Saber Legion has been doing such a great job of it for the past decade
just bringing
that
people together. Yeah,
yeah, just bring people together that it's great. But again, those are the same people that are also looking for something else
that's right.
to do as well.
That's right.
Because the coolest thing about it, and I mean we've talked ad nauseum about this, is the more people that are doing this, the more that we will do it, right? The more people that are into it, the more people we invite will actually be there. Now there
Yeah.
are a couple of people out there that are thinking, hey, maybe I can go in there and just work out my frustrations and do stuff like that. But there are certain rule sets, much like this, where it the rules themselves don't reward you for it.
Yeah.
Right? They give you a reason to actually play
The
game.
The game. That's right.
Yeah, and not just throw down your saber and go fisticuffs. So
although I won't lie, I do like a little fisticuff.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting near the end, so it's my hope to be a part of this, and that's the international group, and that's why the Aiken Saber group is around 2,000 people. It's just to share everything that goes on, every fight that I can find.
Yeah.
From whatever group I share in the international group and Aiken Saber Academy. We have two podcasts right now that are helpful, and that's Kyber Cave and this one. And now I talked to Terry, and I can't remember the guy who was the head of Saber Legion.
Charlie?
Not Charlie, before him.
Terry. Yeah, Terry.
Yeah, Terry. And Terry's going to start a podcast himself. He's got a Saber sports group that's at about 2,200 members. And
interesting.
We have been he's talking about an online newsletter and a podcast.
Interesting.
So so the word is getting out.
Yeah.
We've got communication. We're all talking to each other in different places. We've got experimentation with Saberlight Nights. This is kind of the golden age, and we've got everybody recognizes the value of playing nice with everybody else in the community.
Yeah,
and we got to grow.
I'd be remiss to mention, like, here we are blabbering about all this. Tony, you're one of the first people to just go, hey, I'll be friends with everyone, legitimately, because I'll just tattletale on myself. 8 years ago, I was a little bit skeptical of other people in the community. We'll just put it nicely. Alan probably knows the reality of my feelings at the time, and I came at it from that martial artist protective of my martial arts perspective, right? But right. You came at it from the perspective of a guy who wants to share, right? Which is the way that I have come to approach it over time. And that you were one of the first ones to just kind of 2,000 plus people just in your Facebook group chatting about lightsabers. So I'd be remiss not to give you that kudos, because
I appreciate that.
It is value. I mean, we talk about Chad, right? He's been on YouTube for a very long time with TPLA. That's his contribution, right? We talk about Damon and how he was one of the first ones to do the stage fighting and the forms and in forms. And then, Alan and I have been talking about the martial arts for a long, long time. But everybody had their little niche, and you were one of the first people to be like, I like all the niches. Give me all the niches. So that is the essence of Saber Martial Arts. It really is. And so when Katie and Alan told me that you were interested in us being one of those niches in your, it's yeah, this guy gets it. He does get it. So I think the SIT stuff that we're watching tonight, I think it's an example of the fact that you frickin' get it, and people who want to know what not just Saber Martial Arts, but what the Jedi were up to. This is what the Jedi were up to. So that's the coolest part of it to me.
I have a lot of friends that are American Jedi as well, so I talk.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, on a regular basis. But I will say, SMAF has so much potential. There aren't a lot of schools, and we need to start more schools. We need to have places
Correct.
Where, we still have not done a very good job with bringing young people. Everybody on this video, I think Tully was the youngest person that competed, and he's 18.
Yeah, I know you. You have a age minimum that's higher than I'm probably one of the only people who's done this stuff with 6-year-olds, and it's not for everybody. Let me just put it that way. Doing this
it's because I can only get the space once a week.
Well,
So,
and it's just not. I mean, it takes a different. Not that you don't have it. I'm just saying it takes a different. You have to change gears when you're teaching a 6-year-old versus a 16-year-old.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. You have to change
Absolutely.
gears. And I'm starting a new Saber program at the gym. By the time people hear this, it'll have already been a few weeks in. But I'm doing it 6-year-olds and up. But I'm only doing that for the first 45 minutes, and that first 45 minutes, they're barely going to make any contact. If they do any sparring, it's going to be with an adult or an instructor, right? And their parents are allowed to do it with them in that first 45 minutes. So it'll be a lot of like forms, maybe a little bit of choreography, nothing real heavy contact based at all, even with foam
it's
weapons.
when you have weapons, it's a little harder with the younger ones.
Correct.
So in the manual that I wrote, I suggested I put them in categories. So 9 to 13 would be a category, and then 13 to 16.
Right.
I do have a 12-year-old, and he's just a little
you
small
mentioned that. Yep.
for our class, but we do need it. I leave it to you guys. Like my friend Karen Herdman, who's the 7th degree in Taekwondo.
Yep.
Her program has grown really big, and she's got the 6 and 7-year-olds. I'm hoping some of those get them to be in the 14 and maybe come over to us a little.
Well, it helps when they already train in, whether it be a traditional martial art like Taekwondo, or even like kids Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or something, would set them up in a good vein to start weapons training. But a lot of those traditional martial arts, they already have, like, maybe they do nunchucks or stick fighting or something at a young age. So they already kind of have a little bit of that introduction to the danger aspect of it, to the control aspect of it. But if that's not, like, if you're dealing with a lot of people who aren't martial artists, your age number might, like, your minimum should maybe come up a little bit, at least to start out. Just like you're talking about, Tony, like 9, that's right. Probably young for some people, right? Like 12 is maybe the absolute minimum for a lot of people.
I will say 14 is, high school age, freshmen in high school. They compete very well with adults.
I agree.
With the
I absolutely agree. And the right 12-year-old can compete with adults, like you had mentioned at the beginning, right? The right one can do it.
Right.
But maybe, if you're going to incorporate kids, have a plan for dividing training up accordingly to appropriateness.
I'm going to say that it's a question of leadership, and it turns out that there aren't a lot of people that will put themselves out and start schools or groups and work with teens. And I think that's the one spot. Saber Legion has an initiative to start working with teenagers.
Yeah, Charlie had mentioned that on our show many months ago.
Yeah, they didn't. In my mind, they didn't go far enough, so they kind of are at the pilot stage.
Charlie, hit us up, man.
Yeah, it depends on the group if they want to do it or not. And it's because in the manual you can see that there's insurance issues.
Yeah.
You have to have background checks, all those things.
Correct.
But those are not insurmountable. And so,
now, honestly, those are kind of the easier things to deal with in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the foam stuff we're doing right now and start reaching out to like more teenage groups at the high schools and things, and hosting foam competitions with not students, with kids that are not my students, that kind of thing. Sort of get them in the door.
I think it's a great idea. I think you should do it.
I know this isn't the focus of the podcast, but I am going to put this out here. Coming in 2025 is going to be an implementation by me in Phoenix and Arizona to actually, start a teen program as well, because I already have all that stuff. I already have all those qualifications. So
you do.
So one of the things I'm going to start to do is do that. The thing about the biggest thing
Alan, I don't want you to lose that thought. But you mentioned you already have these. Yeah, and by the way, if you're a martial arts teacher and you teach at a martial arts gym, you probably already have those qualifications as well under the umbrella of your gym or dojo. So you can do it. You can do it. So go ahead.
In May, when I get back from my European escapade over there, and hopefully fighting people with lightsabers in Europe, is the what I'm going to try to do here is to create a program that's not necessarily an after-school program, but maybe like a weekend thing where kids can come in. Again, sweet spot for me, much like Tony is saying, is like 12 and up.
Yeah, I get it.
But like most people in the demographic that want to do lightsabers are going to be from 8 to 12. And then anybody that's younger than that, it's not them that wants to do it, it's their parents. So
I agree.
So one of the things that I learned from Sensei Evan Banks is he has the parents have to train with their kids. So if you are going to teach kids weapons, make sure that you train with them.
Yeah.
Because
episode 50.
You cannot drop them off. Okay.
Episode 53 is the conversation Alan's referencing with Evan Banks. So go back and listen to episode 53. He talks about exactly what Alan's talking about right now.
And the cool thing about that is that if it puts a lot more onus on the parents when they're that young to do that, and most kids that are between the age of 12 and 16 are going to be busy with multiple kids, right? But if you can do that with your kid, number one, their teenage years are going to be so much better.
Oh yeah,
because you're doing something with them, and you guys can do all that stuff.
And they're not going to hate you as an adult.
And so if you do, go ahead.
Younger kids are a little bit tougher because
there's
just a lack of maturity.
I agree.
In anyone below the age of 9. They're still a little young, and then there's a size issue in trying to match them up with equipment. So finding them protective gear, fencing mask, a right size lightsaber. You can always cut the blade down to the right size. So it becomes an expense as well. So that's another reason.
And that's why I generally don't do actual combat with that. Like I call it the first 45 minutes, but with that younger age group. And listen, in all honesty, if I didn't already have 20 plus 6 to 12-year-olds in my Kung Fu and MMA program, I would make it 12-year-olds and up only. But when I was talking to my boss, I was like, why would I give up the potential for 20 students right out of the gate? Right? Like, who have parents and parents have friends who might want to come to the adult. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. If I wasn't going to really let them hit each other hard anyway, if they were going to mostly do, but nobody's wrong in this situation. This is like, we're laying out for people who are listening all the things you have to really think about if you're adjusting the age requirements on your program. So like for me, going down to 6, all these other things were already in place. It was like, I just don't let them hit each other. Like that's pretty, they can hit an instructor with foam weapons, right? And an instructor can hit them with foam weapons, and nobody has to have gear in that regard. But then after that first 45 minutes, okay, if you want to start sparring, here's a fencing mask. That's the first thing you start with, blah, 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 right? So these are the things that you think about. And I think this is, like you said, not the focus of the show, but it's kind of a cool organic thing that's come out of the conversation that I think is important to always have it in the light.
Yeah, we went from foam wars with adults down to a big, important discussion about kids. And
it is an important one. And I'm glad that you're here for it, Tony, because like you said, you wrote the manual, but also like you are such a big proponent of it. It's
I think that martial arts are important for kids. And listen, I've seen kids box at the age of 6, 7, and they're hitting each other. You know, they got thicker gloves. And so martial arts, kung fu, karate, all those are wonderful for kids that age. Lightsabers and weapons, you have to wait till a little bit older, a little bit more mature. Yeah. For a lot of reasons. And again, it's an insurance, it's liability, it's the cost of the gear and the protective gear. And it's really not fun, but you can do choreography with kids that age.
Pretty simple choreography is pretty simple to teach. And you know what? You can kill 45 minutes really quickly with like 5-6 moves, right? and creative repetition.
Yeah. I've taught young kids choreography to do a little simple routine that were as young as 6 years old. So it's very doable. The person you had on from France, Vince.
Vince, Vince.
Yeah, I mean, he's
episode
like
34 or 52 and 53. Sorry.
Yeah, he's a choreography master.
Yes, he really is. Quite good.
I was glad to see him on the SMAP podcast. You need to keep bringing those kinds of people with those viewpoints. But choreography is very accessible to children.
All right, guys, we beat
working
this to hell, and it was a good conversation, really good conversation. Right. Do we have time to watch the women? Do you guys have the time?
I have all night. I'm awake now.
Well, I had a big Mountain Dew, so I'm good too.
My little dachshund is sleeping by my feet. I'm good to go.
All right, let's do it.
Don't step on that wiener. All right, so we are going to, again, the show will be linked. It'll say something like women's fight, but geez, my chair keeps dropping. This is called Praxeum Foam Wars: The Women. And we're going to start at 35 seconds on the dial this time. That should get us right up to the first fight. So we'll do another 3, 2, 1, play. Ready? 3, 2, 1, play.
Okay, here we go.
Starting with two-sided axe.
Yeah, that's the young lady. She had a lot of guts. She was the smallest person out there.
Did she just block with gauntlets? I'm a big fan of that. She just X-blocked with got disarmed, X-blocked with bare arms as if she was wearing Wonder Woman's gauntlets. I'm just in it. I'm in for it.
Yeah, so she's having a hard time. They're not really particularly heavy, but I don't think she understands the movement yet.
Yeah.
Because she's not used to that kind of weapon. Yep. So you have to, there's a technique. So he just disarmed her.
She's lost it like 3 times now.
Right. So this is M from, she's done only light speed, I believe. And this is her first foray into Saber Light Knights, and then now her first foray into Foam Wars. And
Lightspeed is quite a bit different rules than any of the stuff that we've seen in these videos so far.
Right, I've done Lightspeed. It's very, very, very fast, very quick, and the blade, and it is no kidding, the fastest of all lightsaber sports.
Blades are not my favorite. I will say, and Alan and I think mentioned this when we did our light fencing episodes, but I do really like the 2mm blades. We're generally big fans of the heavy grades in what we do, but when we were working with the 2mm, right? The 2mm, is that what Chad uses, Alan?
Correct.
They really have a good feel to them.
So this is Noah and Christy, I believe.
Right, and so they're using Naginata, and so this is my favorite of all the weapons.
If you're not familiar with that weapon, that would be like a Japanese slashing spear.
Right, it's basically a sword on the end of a stick.
That's right, like a wakizashi at the end of a stick. Yep. Yeah. And this would traditionally be used by females to protect a home, protect themselves, protect whatever, the travelers. Not just females, I'm sure, but that's traditionally, and even in modern day kendo, a lot of times you see females.
Yeah, Alan and I fought this a couple of years ago and just went back and forth.
It's one of my favorite traditional Japanese weapons. Yeah, I just love it.
With the foam, it makes a really cool sound.
Yep.
And you can move it. It's just a fun weapon, and you can do some pretty impressive blocks with it.
My teenagers love this. My kids love this. We use the Action Flex bow or staff, and they had like 3 sections.
That's cool.
So that way you could really tell where the quote-unquote blade would be. So, yeah, it was very good.
Right, well, that would be very cool.
I like this. A boy can wish.
So, like, she's not arming. She's just armed just then. She's doing okay. She's just not familiar. She's getting tired. Mm-hmm. This was back when it was 3-minute rounds.
Is that Christy? Yeah, that's Christy Jerome. Uh-huh. I don't think she's ever fought with a weapon like this. Maybe saber pike, but it's a little different.
I know very few people have fought with a weapon like this.
Right.
Yeah, so this is a little bit more greatsword.
Correct.
It would be.
That's a good way to say it, Alan. That's a good way to say it.
That's pretty close. That's right.
The hilt ratio is reversed, but the feel is very similar.
Correct.
And she won. All right, so she looks like spear and shield. So
I love this combination.
This is Sifu Damon.
Oh, look at it. Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah, I talked him into fighting.
I believe this is Liz that's fighting him.
Oh, very cool.
So he's not making good use of the spear length.
Putting salvos in there.
I mean, it's a technique thing. So like he's half shorting himself.
Oh, I will say she's doing very well, but I've always been so impressed by Damon's stances. It really, really, and look, he's older than I am. I'll just say that. And
it was a joy to watch him fight.
He's got just incredible stance work. Yeah, it is fun to see him fight because you don't see him fight very much.
No, he told me he had given up fighting a long time ago, but he saw this. And...
Yeah, he just wanted to have some fun.
Yep.
And he was also his seminar was right after this, and what he was talking about was basically just watching everybody's tendencies to move certain directions, and like one of the things he was paying attention to was not like how somebody goes ahead with straight ahead with a fight, but everybody tends to use the breadth of the ring to actually do it, and how they would do it is basically what fascinated him. So you can see
interesting.
He's now choking back, so he has the length of the weapon. He got into it because he's looking for, okay, now this is how you're supposed to play. Okay. Yeah.
It is. And those are a little bit bigger. So that's our another good size shield, but it's not that big. It's perfect for this kind of fighting.
And,
just enough protection.
He is very experienced with spears, but this is kind of interesting. Tony, you mentioned just the gamification and stuff like that. This would be an example of somebody who's got a lot of experience with this weapon, but also has to do it within the confines of the game. And I kind of think of it like a guitarist who plays Guitar Hero, And that, as a guitarist, you love playing Guitar Hero, but you're like, this is not exactly guitar, but I can see how this is still.
It's a person who is very familiar with ancient weapons, and he looked a little uncomfortable with this until he could figure out the rules. But he did win.
He did win, but she was showing a level of comfort with the weapon. Not having the same level of experience he did, but a level of comfort in the rule set, and here we go. She's fighting again. Who is this again? Liz? I like watching her fight. She's got a good demeanor about her when she fights.
Right.
Yes.
So like this break was right. So this break was she got some lessons on how to use the Warhammer. So that's a smaller Warhammer.
And you said who's she fighting?
Akaya. From West Virginia. He runs Kyber Kai Academy. There's David walking by, David Graham. Snake eyes to those of you that are watching and paying attention.
Liz is good at playing timid. I don't think she's actually as timid as she appears because she strikes pretty quickly when she wants to. And she stays just out of measure.
And he's notice how he's one-handing at his strikes. So that's just to gain some speed.
Mm-hmm. So she's
also very used to learning as she goes. So she's like absorbing all of this as lessons, not necessarily looking to win, but going, okay, how can I make this work?
So Tony, unlike Courtney's rules with the pole arms, you are allowed to use them one-handed in this rule set.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So I know Courtney's. I think you can like switch hands and stuff, but I think you have to strike with both hands on the spear and great sword. I could be wrong about that, but he clarified.
I didn't. Yeah, I don't find it to be an advantage or a disadvantage. So
I agree.
Why not allow that
I agree.
flexibility?
I agree. Now with the heavier actual LED saber pike, it makes sense in terms of weight. I think that's his big concern is just the actual force that you can hit with.
Right. If you're using your pike, that lightsaber pike,
that's
it's
a heavy
totally
weapon.
It's heavy. We've used them as Naginata, and I've gotten away from that.
Yeah.
They're just not. It doesn't work. And we don't thrust, so I don't really like to use them at all, to be honest.
Well, and that's traditionally a very fast weapon. Actually, on TV, they did I think it was Deadliest Warrior. They did like an analysis of the speed of the blade of that weapon, and just zips through stuff so fast.
Absolutely.
And you can't really get that with the way that our actual real world lightsabers are made, right? So foam weaponry, this is another opportunity to you can actually use some weapons a little more accurately, even though it's foam. And to me, the Naginata is one of those examples because it's like you can move it as fast as it's supposed to move when it's a foam weapon.
What happened here was I noticed that she had a smaller shield.
Oh, yes. We have sword and shield here, by the way.
She shouldn't even have been allowed to fight, so I switched shields.
We have Christy and Vince here.
Vince is Vince, right?
Yes, Vince.
Now he's finding out real quick what the difference is.
And he's using a tear-shaped shield while Christy's got a full round shield.
That's right.
I say full. They're about the same size. It's slightly bigger.
Well, the round one is definitely bigger.
It's definitely bigger. Yeah.
Protective. Yeah.
It covers Vince's whole forearm, but it doesn't provide a lot of vertical protection.
Right. That's right. It's a little bit more difficult to use it like a Spartan type shield or a Spartan would fight.
Yep.
So look what happened. So he was.
So
winning.
she wins.
We switched shields and she wins.
And now they're both using that teardrop shaped shield.
Right, which is why we go to this so that you can score points. It's hard to score points with the foam spears on just the thrust, so just use a small shield.
So now this is interesting. Christy's got it with the tapered end at her elbow, and who's the other gentleman?
That's Peter.
He's got it with the teardrop with the taper towards his fist. I can't decide that either one is better or worse, but they definitely provide different advantages and disadvantages.
I would normally fight the way Christie's fighting.
I would agree. Yeah, that would be my default.
Because he's giving up. There's a little bit of a vulnerability.
To his face in particular.
Points, right, with a head and body shot.
He can move the tip of his spear to the face, maybe a little more dexterously, but definitely the protection's not there. Now, Christy had her shield down on that one. That's why she got poked in the face, but there we go. Good block.
And his shield work, the way he's holding his shield is pretty good.
I agree. Yeah, he's making up for the direction of it.
He's got a little bit more experience. He's a little less mobile opponent.
Yep. He's probably that was probably a conscious choice to orient his shield that way, and he wins.
Yeah.
That was very fun. Was that the end? That was very fun.
I think that's it.
So do we want to watch the championship match?
I'm game to whatever you guys want to do.
We didn't already see that, did we? That wasn't already in the video.
No. So
okay. So we'll put that in the show description as well. But if you're just clicking along the Aiken page, we'll just get right into it. The next one is called Foam Weapon Finals at Praxeum Wars. And let me find on the dial here where we'll start. Looks like we're going to start at 42 seconds. 42 seconds on the dial.
Yeah, so for me, when I do these, I kind of have to explain what the rules are since they're going to be on YouTube. All right.
So 42 seconds. We're going to do a 3, 2, 1, go. Ready? 3,
all right.
2, 1, go. Two-sided axe.
So it's Peter and...
Oh, that was fun. Lots of binding and pushing.
Yeah, so I think they fought 3 times.
I think I just saw Courtney's eyes bug out of his skull.
Right. So Courtney's holding my phone with the app. And of course, he's in the way of the camera, so I had to film around him.
What was the app that you were using?
Oh, well, it's only on Apples. Do you have an Apple iPhone?
Oh, I mean, Mark can put it in the show description too, so that he can.
Let me find.
Well, do you have to have the Soft Warrior weaponry to use it, or?
No, it's just not at all. It's called SB Remote. So SB Remote is a scorekeeper for a streaming game thing for soccer and stuff like that. So by itself, SB Remote is adjustable to different styles. I have mine set up for red and blue and time, and then you can give points. It's a pretty fantastic.
Damn it! Where was this app like 6 to 8 years ago?
Yeah, I was an almost 70-year-old man finding this stuff, and you guys aren't.
I'm telling you, Tony, this was the big mystery several years ago that we were trying to figure out, was this live scoring situation. Not just how to do it, but how to make it viewable and all that stuff too.
Right.
And this,
people
is a big
people
deal.
have made them before. We just haven't actually made one specifically for that. Other apps do what this thing does, but if it's in one place, then why not use it?
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Well, and fencing has had this kind of situation. I'm sorry, Tony. I didn't mean to trounce on you.
Fight. So it's 2 minutes with one type of weapon and 2 minutes with another. So that's why you're saying the fight's not over yet.
Okay, so they just did the two-handed axe, the two-headed axe, and now they're going to do longsword.
Right. And by this time, you can see Tripp is getting ready to fall flat on his face.
Oh!
He's so tired.
I like the block into the counters here. Okay, so I'm starting to see a little bit of the both people, like the simultaneous striking. Right. Do you have a mechanism in place to deter people from doing that?
No, you just call a break and just call simultaneous no score. Yep. Right. Now, in Melee, our other rule set, so a fight for us in Lightsaber is 2 minutes, a minute and a half of this style, and then 2 minutes of Melee, and simultaneous counts. And you have to fight two-handed.
Okay.
So a SITS match is a full rounded way of somebody learning every aspect of fighting with a bladed weapon.
You also notice that these guys are not just going for it too. They are at the end of their day on this.
Yeah.
Because they're also going back to their starting positions every time.
Yeah.
As well.
That was almost a Rock'em Sock'em match, but there was some technique in there too.
The match ends, I believe, in a tie. So so it's sudden death.
Sudden death. Oh
so I'm going to have to tell Courtney next time, watch the cameras.
Somebody.
He owns the dojo. His camera's there too.
Yeah, I had to do that for him too. He's like, oh, yep, you know what? I set it up there and I still did it. I'm like, I understand completely. I do it all the time. So I'm going to be the guy that helps you. But yeah, this is who hits first. Yep.
Yeah, they're running at each other a little bit now. Come on, boys.
So we're at the giddy part of the day.
And this is also we want a clear winner. Whoever hits. We're not looking for any slop to win.
To the leg.
Yeah.
So at that point, I thought Tripp had actually been disarmed, but it looked like it just got caught.
Yeah, like he lost it after the strike.
So Tripp wins that.
All right, congratulations. Well, that was too much fun. So.
All right, so that's just the award ceremony.
Yeah.
Tripp first, Peter second, and Alon third.
So, Tony, is this the first time you've done this in a actual tournament setting?
Yeah, it is. So our school doesn't travel much. We don't have the funds for it.
Right.
So we
with kids, it's sometimes hard to do.
Right. right. And, you know, because you have to get chaperones
Right.
and the
Exactly.
rest. But we've been up to Praxeum. I've been there 3 times now, and twice I've brought teams with me, and it looks like it'll be bringing a team with me next year as well.
Well,
Yay.
I'm hoping that next year I'll actually get to go back out. So it was a lot of fun to hang out with you guys when I was there. And man, that podcast was a while ago, but I want to say it's like early 20s, episode early 20s. Tony was on there. Courtney was on there. We sat in, the lobby of the Kung Fu school that you guys were just watching. And we did an awesome podcast together. Probably like 6 of us around that table, 7 of us.
Yeah, it was my first time meeting everybody.
That's right. Yeah, in person. And God, I'm always so shocked by how tall Courtney is when I see him. I tell him that every time. He's a giant human being. But yeah, I think that just the last 3 episodes, we had Courtney with the standard saber, we had Ryan with the exotics, and we had now Commander with the foam weapons. Just 3 really incredible examples of quality instruction, quality rule making, quality running of an event. You really can't get much better examples of those things. And I've been around martial arts tournaments for a long time. Alan's been around them even longer. You can't get much better run than one of these events. So listen to these shows, please. Go back and listen to the previous 2 episodes. I don't know what numbers they are, but that's just because I haven't actually released them by the time I'm recording it. By the time you're hearing this, it'll be the ones before. So also, please check out, if you haven't already, like I said, check out Aiken Saber Academy. Go back and listen. I believe it's called Aiken for a Fight. Go back and listen to that episode. That is Tony's first time on the show. And I believe that was several years ago. So go listen to that and then come back and listen to Saber Mayhem. He was on that episode as well. Reach out to him if you're in South Carolina and you are aching for a fight. Don't actually fight him. The guy's
or if you
class act human being.
Starting a school.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. And also, I would say that if you have any questions or anything, or if you're particularly concerned about youth in your program or whatever, you can send those questions to Tony. You can send them to us. We can send them to Tony if you forget how to get to the Aiken information. SaberMartialArts.life. Look at the schools section. Aiken Saber Academy is right there. Facebook.com, Aiken Saber Academy. Anyway, and subscribe to their YouTube channel as well because I see their videos pop up all the time. I watch them myself. You should as well. Lots of good stuff. Tony, anything you want to leave everybody with before we do our sign off?
Yeah, no, not really. This is working with SMAF has been an introduction into meeting other people like the Saber Light Knights and some of the other groups, and very professional folks in schools and SMAF. So, you guys have done an amazing job. I'm glad to see the podcast is being done on a more regular basis. For a while there, like you said, it was a little bit slow because everybody was adulting and lifing.
Yes,
but it's good. It's good to see it back. If you need other guests ever on the show, let me know. I do a lot of recommendations for Kyber Cave.
And
so we're happy. I'm happy to find you some guests to be on the show as well.
And I should mention you do the Saber Rattle YouTube show. Do you do that every week, or do you just kind of do it when you're asked?
Usually, if it's one of my guests, or they were going to have Terry on last week, and then Terry got sick. So if they have somebody like that, they'll ask me to come in and host. Or if frankly, if the host is at a Comic-Con and can't make it, they'll ask me to come on. So they've got a few hosts. I think that particular podcast has been a benefit to the entire community.
It's a lot more of a like a Saber pop culture show than than what we do, which is strictly martial arts focused.
It is, and they'll get people like a Darth Vader actor or someone like that on that show, and they get a lot of cosplayers, and they really get a lot of flow artists as well. So it's a pretty great show when it comes to the lightsaber, but like you said, also popular culture. So I'm happy to be a host on that. And then sometimes I'm a host on a political podcast. I'm not going to talk about my politics on this show. So I'm on about 3 or 4 different podcasts.
Well, my sensei always said you keep politics and religion out of the dojo and away from the Thanksgiving table, but everywhere else you can talk about whatever you want. And I'm sure that no matter what side of any fence you're on, we can all agree that what you've done with sabers is only good work, and that seems to be the only thing that you plan to do.
But we're all gonna go hand in hand into the future, and hopefully we can grow this thing.
Well, thank you again, especially for the kind words, but also for hanging out with us in the past, the present, and the future. And we wish you all the best as always. But we'll be in contact with you soon to get back on the show here. I know.
Much respect. Thank you so much.
No, I mean a blast. It'll be a blast. And I don't know, maybe Tony might be a good person to have on for one of our super special guest senseis. And we'll see what we can do about that. So without any further ado, sabermartialarts.life. Alan, do you want to shout out anything really quickly? I know you got a short list of things you probably want to mention.
Yeah, so again, every time I want to instill to the people that are listening that Sabermania is going to be in LA Memorial Day weekend. It will be it'll be a lot of fun, mainly because it's going to be teaching.
It'll be a lot like the Praxeum, in LA.
Teaching seminars, and anybody that wants to come and teach, we'll have a space for you. If you want to teach choreography, if you want to teach saber spinning, or if you want to just come in and learn a bunch of stuff.
Mild vetting involved. You have to actually send us a message first.
Yes.
Mastervenable at phoenixsaber.com is the best way to get involved with Sabermania.
Yeah, and if I can get you a space, I will make a schedule for you for a time so that you know when to do it, and then I'll even this year I'll even do all the paperwork for you if you really need me to. Last year I had
Alan,
everybody
it's
do
not
it.
too late to tell me to edit that part out.
Well, it's one of those things where I did it last year and I was like, oh, this is super easy. It's 3 steps. But if you, for some reason, are, my Chinese name is Low Tech. If I could figure out how to do it, so can you. However, a lot of people have the best intentions to do it, but they don't. They need an extra push or an extra kick in the butt to do it. I will do that for you. You just gotta let me know what you want to do, and I can probably get you in. So there will be a deadline eventually for that, but it's probably going to be April. It's going to be the deadline.
Yeah.
But if you can get to me before April and say, hey, this is what I'm teaching, this is what I want to do, I will have a space for you. I'll even have an extra space just in case you didn't get to me in time, and we'll figure something out. Okay?
That was beautiful. Concise and deliberate. I love it. I can't say anything more beautiful than that. If you're in Ohio, come join me for Saber classes, Ohio Fitness and Martial Arts in Bell Fountain, Ohio. That's my shameless plug. Probably nobody in Ohio is listening to this, but that brings me to our final shout out, which is to the lovely nation of Singapore. Right? Singapore, Alan? Is that what I said to you the other day in the text?
That is correct. Singapore is what you said.
Singapore is now our second highest listenership base in the world. They just recently beat Germany for our second place, and New Zealand was our
Amazing.
third. Now Germany is number 3 and New Zealand is number 4. We still love you guys. Impressive as hell from New Zealand, small ass nation. But Singapore, man. And I think
That's Saber Authority.
I was going to say, I think Saber Authority has probably found our podcast, and
Hey.
we have found Saber Authority many moons ago. We love you guys, and if that's you listening, thank you, and keep it up and keep sharing, and we appreciate all you've done.
On a podcast.
Yeah,
They speak
we
English.
should. They probably speak better English than we do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they do. If you guys have never seen Saber Authority, just YouTube Saber Authority and get lost in all the awesomeness. They've been around for a long time. So all right, that's it. You guys have heard it all. Aiken Saber Academy, Saber Martial Arts, and all the stuff and things. Saber Light Knights, of course. Thank you for giving us a baseball field to play, a field of dreams, if you will. And bring your own saber.
This party's over.
Everybody have a good night now.